Hello guys, welcome to another week with us. We are really excited that you are taking this journey and you're learning and growing and becoming a more and more powerful prayer warrior. We have really enjoyed the entire time with you, and I can't believe we're in week 7 now, and we have one more week after this one, obviously, since we get into week 8 shortly. So this week you're going to be looking at the revival that Evan Roberts led in Welsh in 1904 and 1905. Something striking that I want you to pay attention is the youth of this young man. He was only in his mid-20s and he was in Bible college like many of you are right now. And in fact, he had just begun Bible college when God called him to go and lead this revival. And as you would listen to the presentation on this revival, you'll see that this guy was not somebody who had finished his training. He was not somebody who had who really, had everything figured out, but it was someone who was willing to walk with authority. Remember that he went and sought counsel with his dean, his head in the Bible college, to see if this was something he should do. And he got permission from the Bible college. It was something that he did following godly counsel and godly authority. And God chose to use him to make a point, I think, that you don't have to be completely baked, completely finished for God to use you. And I don't want you guys to make a mistake that is commonly made and go, oh, this is an example that, hey, you could finish high school, you could just, get up and go without preparation. We don't know how prepared this guy had been with the kind of fervor that he had. It's somebody who had been growing in the things of the Lord. And again, as he was in Bible college, he worked with authority and sort of worked within a church that he had been attending, and basically was a person that God chose to use the least among this within his context, among people that had pastored and led him, with the support already in place. He didn't leave and go to a different country and start something new without training. No. He basically obeyed God and went and preached in his own church, and in the church where his own pastor was. And God chose to use a weakling, in quotes, not to say he had any deformity or anything like that, but to say he was not somebody that most people in his day would have expected that the revival will come from. Maybe people had expected that to come from the pastor. So I want you to remember that as you pursue God and realize that, hey, if at any point as the provost of ABI, God were to put an idea, put a call in your life at any point, and you came to me and said, hey, Dr. Acha, could you please seek the Lord with me and see if this thing that God is calling me to do is his will. And if I seek the Lord genuinely and find that what God is calling you to do is his will, I would encourage you and say, please take a leave of absence from ABI like Evans did, and go and do what God wants you to do. When the time comes, you can come back and finish your training if that's the Lord's will. So that's something that I think you should really take out of this. Another thing that I wanted to bring up and just remind you this week is that the title of this course is Prayer, Warfare, and Revival, in that order. And I touched on this a little bit in one of the posts earlier, but we Christians are called to pray, to be strategic, to pray before we need prayer, to communicate with God, and to continue to intercede and seek. But something that I have discovered in my own life and in learning from other saints is that, like the encounter that Jacob had before his name was changed to Israel, before you find your transformation from Jacob, which basically meant a cheat, somebody who extorts, somebody who's a liar. The name Jacob meant something negative. To the name Israel, that means prince. Before you go from liar and cheater and extortioner to prince in your own life, that is to say, before you get revival in your own life, before you go from struggling to deal with your own weaknesses to walking in an overflow of the Holy Spirit and really experiencing personal revival that flows out and touches many other people, before that happens, sometimes, and in my personal experience, almost all the time, you have to go through a challenge. You have to go through a moment of trial. You have to go through a time where there is a warfare. So between your strategic prayer, between your prayer asking for what you desire for the Lord to do, to the revival, the fruition, the attainment, the obtaining of what you are seeking for, the exuberance that you are seeking, you must walk through a stretch of land. And you must do battle. You must do warfare. So you have to be great in both prayer, in seeking what you desire for God to do, and in interceding and touching the heart of God with your earnestness and fervor. But you have to develop the endurance to be able to do warfare, spiritual warfare, to get to where you will see revival. There are many examples in the scriptures that illustrate this. You remember the story of the Israelites living from Egypt? Before they got to their promised land, where they will eat from trees that were full of fruit, a land overflowing with milk and honey. Before they got to that land, the land that will revive their soul that had come from slavery, a place where their soul was parched. Before they could go from that desert of the soul, from slavery, to a place where their land was flowing with milk and honey, they had to go through battles and battles and battles. They had to do warfare, and they had to overcome many nations to be able to enter their promised land. Think of anyone that has done anything great. Prayer, warfare, revival. Remember that. Everything important that you seek, strategic prayer, vision, desiring what you'd seek, desiring what you want God to do, having a vision for it, and then interceding and pleading with the Lord to do that. Then revival, where what you seek is overflowing and is touching hearts and changing lives. Between the two states, between these two states, there is always the seemingly long warfare. And I say seemingly long because many times a period of 1 to 2 years of going through the wilderness, going through this time of warfare and time of testing and trial can seem like it's been 100 years. But it only seems that way. Regardless, we have to all go through this period of testing and trial and overcoming challenges. A third thing that I felt led this week to sort of touch on with you guys is that Ellen and I are here, people who have served orphans for the last over a decade, and been in ministry, and I've led and served in many different capacities. Each and every one of you that is taking classes at ABI here, whether you're taking classes to train to go lead and serve orphans, or you're taking classes to go lead a church and become a pastor, regardless of the capacity, whether you're going to go start a business, we see you as spiritual children. The work of ABI is a work that God has used us to conceive. And again, I'm the provost and the lead person at ABI. And we want to be here to help you as Paul helped his disciples, as Jesus helped his, as John the Baptist, as any leader helps those that God has given them the opportunity to serve. So we want you guys to take advantage of that and realize that if you're fervent and passionate and you want to go serve orphans, or you want to go do any work, and you're passing through ABI and you're in a certificate program, you're taking classes and learning and growing, that even when you're not in my class, we are more than willing and happy to help you, pray for you, continue to remember you, and seek ways to help open doors for you when God puts us in a place that we can do that. The flip side of that, which is really where the message is that I know that many of you have been seeking a mentor. You've heard messages taught about the importance of having a spiritual mother or a spiritual father or a spiritual parent. Somebody who is always thinking and praying about you and covering you, who advises you and coaches you, who loves you sometimes more than your biological parents do, who cares for you. That many of you are seeking that. And God is going to use Ellen and I to be that for some of you, and other people will be able to meet those needs in others among you. But the thing to start doing is that you should start looking for other people for whom you can also become a spiritual parent, and start meeting their needs while you are expecting and praying for the right mentor, the right spiritual person to come. And remember, no one can ever attain their full potential without the help of a leader, a mentor, a coach, somebody who can help you. Very few people, it is impossible, let me say it that way, to make it in life to where God intended for you to go without a coach. Think of somebody like Serena Williams, the best tennis player of all time. She's won more championships than any other tennis player in recorded history. She needs a coach. She needs a mentor. Think of anyone who has accomplished anything in any sphere of life. They need a mentor. You need a mentor and a spiritual parent, much more so when you want to do the things of God. Finally, you're going to be looking at the revival at Welch this week, and also there's going to be verses for you to memorize. Remember some of the things we've talked about. Remember to prepare yourself to go through prayer, warfare, and revival, not only through this course, but remember that this course has given you a paradigm to know and to always be ready that you're going to be strategic in prayer, in desiring, in envisioning, in pursuing, but be prepared and ready, and know that there is going to be a night of warfare, a night of struggle, a night of testing and trial. But as the scriptures say, weeping may last through the night, but joy comes in the morning. Revival will come to those who not only pray, but to those who are willing to be put by God through the time of spiritual warfare. Those who are willing to be able to take their swords out and endure and go to war and fight. Those are the people who indeed always get the revival they seek.